Meanwhile, Peter Navarro is an assistant to the president and the director of the White House Office of Trade and Manufacturing Policy and joins me now. Welcome. It's very good to have you here with us today.
Good afternoon, Andrea.
I want to ask you about the first night of the convention because there were speakers and videos painting a very rosy picture of the president as a champion over the coronavirus. Yet there was no mention of the nearly 180,000 Americans who are dead, and that there were nearly 40,000 positive cases every day, close to 1,000 deaths a day. The convention seemed to be an alternative reality. Now, despite recent hopeful trends in the treatment, we'll get to that in a moment, why no acknowledgement of the pain and suffering that has been caused?
Let's talk broad brush about what I saw last night. I think too many folks went down the dark, dim path of painting what happened last night. But I did enjoy Nikki Haley talking about her experiences. Tim Scott, the cotton fields to Congress, I think that was the line of the night. But I also enjoyed Vernon Jones and his talk, as well as Herschel Walker. So I thought there was really fine balance last night with respect to the virus that came to China and has killed over 170,000 Americans. I take that one really personally because I've spent the better part of my life since January 28th working on this. And this is an attack. This was an attack from China. Whether it was an intentional or not, they hid the virus from us. And if there's any president that should be blamed for the Americans dying, it's the unelected president of China. What I've been doing, Andrea, is working really hard on what we call inside the West Wing our four main vectors of attack. I think we've done a great job building our domestic production of our personal protective equipment, the gloves, the masks, the goggles, all of that. We're bringing our medicines on shore so that if people go into the ICU, they have what they need. That's vector one. The second vector is the testing, which we continue to rapidly expand. But more importantly, from an innovation point of view, we're getting to the point now with a breakthrough where we can do point of care testing, kind of like a pregnancy test, and get immediate results. That's going to be the gold standard there. The third vector of attack is our therapeutics. And you have remdesivir, I think, was the first one out of the gate there. We've got dextromethasone. And then just on Sunday, introduced convalescent plasma, which we can talk more in detail about. The last vector attack on that, and you'll hear more about it, is the vaccines. I mean, we're getting to a vaccine in a third of the time that it usually takes. So you're going to be hearing a lot about that over this convention.
And remdesivir, indeed. I want to talk to you, though, about the convalescent plasma and the emergency use. FDA Commissioner Stephen Hahn has now apologized. He, along with the president, Secretary Azar, on Sunday night, said that out of 100 people with COVID, 35 were saved by convalescent plasma in a study. He now says that the criticism of those false claims, exaggerated claims, was entirely justified, and that he should have said that there is a relative risk reduction, not an absolute reduction. And in fact, the study was only a subset of a subset, not a randomized study. Now, you are a PhD economist. You're an expert. You know statistics inside and out. Emergency approval of using plasma this way reduces the possibility of having a proper randomized study, and it falsely inflates hopes.
I don't accept that premise. That to me is like a crazy
talking point. That's what every expert.
It's
that's what Mayo. The Mayo Clinic, sir. The Mayo Clinic, which did the study, is saying that, and Dr. Hahn is saying that. Is Dr. Hahn, the FDA committee? Let me just get my question out. Is Dr. Hahn wrong? No, the question is.
So first of all,
Dr. Hahn has said that he was wrong to say this.
On the issue of the not being able to do randomized trials, I mean, what is the calculus here? Are we going to wait to use something that can save thousands of lives just so we can have a study that tells us what we already know, which is
that is scientific practice,
now,
sir.
With respect,
excuse me, that is the way vaccines and drugs are approved.
This is an important debate. Hang on, Andrea.
Is the test.
Andrea. This is an important debate for the American people and your viewers to have. Do you want to wait for a therapy which likely works to get these scientific studies, which are going to take 3, 6 months or whatever, or do you want to do the right to try? President Trump is the right to try president. And here's what the debate over convalescent plasma puzzles me, frankly, because this is a therapy that's been used for over a century, and we know two things about it.
For other diseases. Not for COVID. This is a new virus, sir.
Exactly. But if it's used for other diseases, here's my claim. My claim is that the odds of this being able to hurt you are close to zero, so it's safe. The odds of it being able to help you are close to 100%. Now, whether Hahn, he
close
misspoke.
to 100%.
He cited the odds of this being. Hang on. The odds of this being able to help people is close to 100%. It's not going to help every person. As Hahn basically used absolute numbers rather than relative. I'm not going to defend Stephen Hahn. What I am going to defend is the idea that
the president said that as well.
Andrea.
It was the president, it was Stephen Hahn and Secretary Azar together on the platform at the White House.
You do a disservice.
I just have to correct you as you go along.
You do a disservice. No, you're not correcting me. You're not correcting me. I'm telling you what I saw because I saw that in real time. The issue is simply, the question for your viewers is simple. People are dying out there. Does convalescent plasma likely help people in terms of saving lives? And I think the answer is yes. The question of how much it helps, that's to be determined. But I think that it's good that that's out.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.